Hi, everyone, and welcome to what is already going to be our last session of the first day. And wow, that we share a lot of knowledge today. We've seen sessions on artificial intelligence, the way data and analytics is used in psychology. We've seen case studies from banking and insurance. So I hope that by the end of today, your brain still has place left for one very interesting session, because I promise you that this one is going to be good. It's going to be my main pleasure today to introduce to you one of my favorite speakers, who is nobody less than Jordan Morrow. Jordan is known as the Godfather of Data Literacy, having helped pioneer the field by building one of the world's first data literacy programs and driving thought leadership. Jordan is the head of data skills and a global trailblazer in the world of data literacy, building the world's first full-scale data literacy program. If he's not working, he's also actively sporting. He's happily married with 5 kids and is an avid trail runner who loves fitness, entering and racing in multiple ultramarathons, and having fun adventures. Currently, he's traveling the world to do sessions like this, so I'm extremely pleased that he has time for us today. Presenting from the US today, Jordan, it's a great pleasure to have you back at Big Data Days.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Jan, Willem, and I were talking before this. I got back just Sunday, so 2 days ago, from a long flight after spending basically a full week, 8 days if you count travel and all that, in Scotland. And then I got home, and then I decided taking a red-eye flight out to Washington, D.C. was a good idea. So right now, my body doesn't know kind of anything, but I'm excited. I love the topic. We're going to have fun. And if you message me at like 7 p.m. tonight, which is 5 p.m. my time, I might be so zonked out in bed, because this is my first of 4 speaking engagements today. So I'm super excited to talk about this topic. As was just introduced, I helped pioneer and invent this entire field of data literacy. In fact, where I am today in Washington, D.C., I'm at a Click event. If you know who Click is, if not, main competitor really with Tableau and Power BI. And it was at Click that I was given the wonderful opportunity to help build data literacy, to pioneer and invent it. And it takes me essentially all over the world. So to begin, I actually want to give a big shout out. I love that my publisher, Kogan Page, is here today as one of the sponsors. I think that's awesome. They've treated me so well with all the books that I've written with them. But let's jump in. So I'm going to start off with a little bit of humor because I like humor. And this, if you don't know who this actor is on your screen, his name is Brent Spiner. You can look him up. He's had guest appearance, at least one, if not more, on The Big Bang Theory. But I would say his main claim to fame is he played a character named Data on the TV show Star Trek: The Next Generation. And I got him to sign my second book, which is titled Be Data Driven. I mean, come on, that's just the perfect title for me to have him sign, right? So I got him to sign it, and I love this. Look how he signed my book. To Jordan. It's Data, not Data, Brent Spiner. Now, we had the man himself, the man who played the character Data, settle the score. Is it Data? Is it Data? And the reality is, you can say what you want. I think this is funny. If you want to say Data, that's great. If you want to say Data, that's great. I just think this is a funny joke. Thank you for that introduction there, Jan. My background, in fact, it's funny that screenshot you see of me there, my headshot, is from my days at Click. I'm not bald. I just don't like having hair. And I've been in the data and analytics space a long time. As was said, I have 5 children. And it was funny. One of my kids this morning, as I was FaceTiming, I think he asked, "Do you have a busy day?" Absolutely. I'm running speaking today. I've got a couple more speaking things tomorrow. Then I'll finally go home to rest. But I did help and pioneer and invent this entire space of data literacy. And I'm very passionate about it. I think there is so much power within data literacy to help an individual and an organization to truly succeed with data and analytics. Now, I've got a couple nicknames out there. One, the Godfather of Data Literacy. I did not give myself that nickname. Someone gave it to me. I'm not sure what I think of it. The other nickname I like a lot, and that's Chief Nerd Officer, because that's what I am. I'm the chief nerd, and we're going to talk through things today. So let's talk a little bit about data literacy. And I'm going to kind of go, if you look at my slides, and if you haven't noticed, I talk with my hands. So we're going to do that the whole time on camera here. But number one, I'm going to set the tone with really setting a foundation. You've been speaking all day at this event. But what I want to do is really set the tone for where the world of data is today. Because, I mean, it was just 6 months ago or so when GPT technology kind of hit the stage. And just look at how it has transformed the world already. So let's talk about this world of data. Let's define data literacy. And let's go through, talk about being data-driven. And then what we'll do is leave a minute or two at the end for a question or two, and then send you on your way. Because I believe it's later in the day for you. It's still morning for me here. So let's jump in. Let's talk about this world of data. Now, it's very interesting because if we were in person, I would ask people, do you know how many zeros or how many zeros exist in a zettabyte worth of data? Well, that number is right in front of you. Okay, that is 21 zeros. And there's two numbers that I have found out there when it comes to the prediction of the annual data sphere by 2025. And I believe what that means is all the data created in the year 2025. I don't think that means all the data that was created before it. So if you think about that, I actually think that ChatGPT might have made this number go up. I saw a different prediction all the way back in April, maybe last year, when I was writing my third book, that said it was 180 plus zettabytes worth of data. So it really just boils down to, that's a freaking lot of numbers. It's a freaking lot of data, but I'm going to go against the grain. I'm going to go against a little bit and say, who cares? And the reason I say it that way is it doesn't matter the amount of data you're collecting. What matters is the right data at the right time to satisfy the right need. Sometimes that means you're going to use tools and technology. Sometimes it means you're not. Sometimes you need the machines to help you more than others. Sometimes you don't. But overall, what matters is, can we find within all the data that exists out there the signal amongst the noise? And that might be a term you've heard of before. And if not, let me explain it. So way back in my day, because I'm old now, the way I would listen to music is you had a radio. And for that radio, you would turn a dial to try and find the radio signal amongst all of it. So if you weren't on the radio signal, you'd get static, right? And then you get closer and you might hear some stuff. And then you get to your signal and you found your radio station. And way back then, I don't know if my kids can ever comprehend not just being able to go to iTunes or Spotify or any of these things and get a song, but you hoped your song would come on the radio and you'd press record. Well, that's where signal and noise comes from, is radios. The same thing applies to data and analytics. What we're trying to do is find within all the data, the signals, i.e. the radio stations, amongst all the noise, i.e. amongst all the static. That right there is the foundation of everything we think about with data. So when you're thinking about data and analytics, what we want to think about is, what are we trying to achieve with the data? What data will help support us to make that happen? And then what can we do with the data? But that's just not it, all of it, right? You can't just say that's it and then hope you're going to get an answer. The reality is the world of data is complex and simple at the same time, right? It's one of those where in the world of data and analytics, a lot of people might not know where their role fits, right? And that could be because they personally don't have a background in data and analytics. So they're fearful of what might happen. Like, look at the fourth question on here. What is the future of data technology? Will robots take my job? I think that's a fearful question. And right now with GPT technology, yeah, some jobs are going to be eliminated. They're going to vary. They're going to shift. And it's going to happen. It absolutely is going to happen. Now, the reality of it, though, is when you go through a scenario with data and analytics and through these industrial revolutions that change things, a lot of times more jobs are created than eliminated. So that's how we need to approach this. We need to have the mindset that these disruptive technologies around data and analytics, AI, machine learning, are powerful. They are things to help us use them. They are not things to be afraid of. But that's tough, right? Because a lot of people, it's not their background, it's not their jobs, it's not their roles, it's not what they went to school for. So all of a sudden you have these technologies and we're being told you have to use these technologies coming to us. And then all of a sudden people are fearful of what will happen. But the way I view these tools and technologies is really to run with it and say, these tools and these technologies are here to enhance my work, not eliminate my work. These tools are here to empower me to succeed, And that's what we want. They want to be partners with us, but we've got to figure out how. So when we think about being data-driven, what in the world does that mean? Because there's talk at times out there. Some people like the term data-driven. Some people don't like that term because they fear that means the data is going to drive everything. Some people like the term data-informed. Whatever you want to call it, the way I view it is that being data-driven is there to empower you to make better decisions as an organization or as an individual. That's what it means. So here in front of you, we have my data-driven train. And at the left, we have data. This is the 175 zettabytes worth of data. Excuse me. This is the data your organization collects. As an individual, this is the data you might use to make decisions and succeed. Now, here's the key. Data is just data, and it just sits there unless there is something to bring it to life, whether that's a person or whether that's technology. And that is analytics. Analytics brings to life data. And what we want to find with the analytics is insight. Because once we have insight, the whole thing is we can make a decision, right? The insight is the why. The data sits there. The insight, the analytics transforms it, and we find out why things are occurring so that we use a framework and we then make a decision. There you go. That is the empowerment of the data-driven train right there. Now, at the very bottom of this, though, is a very important term that we have to remember, and that's data storytelling. Data storytelling is a key. This is the communicative piece. We have to be able to communicate. One of the example that I use with this is if you think about data and analytics, think about, there's this saying, and if you haven't heard of it, I'll describe it, but at the end of the rainbow is the pot of gold. I think sometimes organizations think data and analytics is the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, when in reality, data and analytics should empower us to get to the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. That's what it should be doing. So that's that communication piece. What if we build up this amazing analysis, find this amazing insight, and then we can't do anything about it, right? We can't communicate it, so no one knows what's occurring. Would it even matter we found that insight? And the answer is probably not. So let's talk about one of these key pieces here. I'm going to take a quick drink. I'm very leery that my voice by tomorrow night will be gone, but you've got me first in this trip, so you got the good voice. Right? In the world of data and analytics, there are a lot of people who do not realize that there are actually 4 levels of analytics. And so what we do, in fact, I have a lunch that I'm running today with leadership, where I'm really going to speak to the overall organizational readiness around data and analytics. Because if we look at the 4 levels of analytics, they're right in front of you. Let me use an analogy to bring these to life, and then talk about how these translate to the individual level and an organization's level. I want you all to imagine that you're sick and you're not feeling well. And when you're not feeling well, you go to a doctor and the doctor says to you, you're sick, leaves the room, and never returns. How many of you are going back to that doctor? Well, guess what that doctor did? They gave you a descriptive analytic. They described what's happening. Well, yeah, I know I'm sick. And in some cases, I didn't know I was sick. Sometimes they uncover things. What we want the doctor to do, though, is say, you're sick, here is why. Because then the doctor can build predictions and say, you're sick, here's why. If you do this, this can happen. So there you're walking through, basically, the 4 levels of analytics. And sometimes, what does a doctor give you? They give you a prescription. And that prescription is like an external thing telling your body to get better. Right? That's what it's trying to do. The same thing occurs in a business setting. Oh, by the way, do doctors always get it right? Right? No, they don't. It's iterative. Sometimes they get it right. Sometimes they get it wrong, and we have to iterate. That is the world of data and analytics. And so now let's turn this to the business world. Most organizations in the world are stuck at descriptive analytics, if I can say it that way. Now, I don't have data to back that up. That's my theory. They're stuck at descriptive analytics because they don't know how to go through the 4 levels of analytics and have organizational readiness. So you have descriptive analytics where we're describing what occurred. It could be the marketing campaign, it could be from an HR perspective, etc. But what we need to do is move beyond a descriptive analytic, which tells us what is going on, and move it towards why that is occurring. Because when we get the why that is occurring, so we go from descriptive to diagnostic, we then can build predictions of what to do next. And then we have prescriptive analytics after that, where sometimes it's okay that the machine tells us what to do. And all these levels of analytics work together. Now, if we were to look at a holistic organization, if you had 10,000 employees, how many do you think would be predictive and prescriptive analytics practitioners? If we had 10,000 employees, maybe 100, right? That might be high. 200 might be high. Vast majority of individuals are going to operate and work in descriptive and diagnostic analytics. That's just the reality of it. And so we have to kind of work in this holistic way that empowers data literacy across the organization to know how to work with the 4 levels of analytics, to know how to utilize technology appropriately. Because technology is not a strategy. Technology is a tool to help our strategy come to life. And so we have to go through this and think of it from the standpoint of, where does an individual, think about yourself. Where do you think you operate in this field? Are you a machine learning engineer, a data scientist, so you're more on the predictive, prescriptive side? Are you a data analyst or like a data steward, someone who's just learning to grow, and so you're in the descriptive diagnostic? The reality is not everyone needs to be advanced. Not everyone needs to know how to code, all of that. But what we need is individuals and organizations working together to make that succeed. And then in the middle, we have one of my favorite words in data and analytics, and that's iterative. Just like doctors don't always get it right, data and analytics is not perfect. Sometimes it's going to mess up. And so, or it's not going to be correct. We might get 60% of the way there. That still means 40% aren't going to happen that way. And so if we're 60% of the way there, it's okay. Make the decision and be confident, because what you'll do is you'll iterate. It's when you're starting to see it not working. All right, so hopefully that painted the picture. If I go back real quick, data sits here, analytics brings it to life, we get insight, and we make a decision. So let's talk real quick about 3 key pillars that need to exist within data and analytics. Remember how I said I'm nerdy? Well, let's just show it real quick on how nerdy I am on this. The reality is there was an old video game called Zelda, or The Legend of Zelda, way back when. And there was the Triforce in Zelda. In this case, I created the tri-data of being data-driven. Data-driven problem solving, data-driven decision-making, data-driven execution. We need data to be a part of this, but there's a key thing that needs to exist in all of our data and analytical work, and that is the human element, right? This is where we can help eliminate the fear that individuals might possess that they don't belong in data and analytics. We absolutely, everybody has a seat at this table. I need your experience. I need your gut feel. I need your thoughts, your ideas. And then what we want to do is combine all those things with the data to problem solve, decision-making, execution. Basically, I need the data element and I need the human element. And when we combine those together, we can truly be data-driven. Now, last slide in this section. What in the world did the pandemic do to data? Well, it's interesting. My second book, Be Data-Driven, really was driven by, early in the pandemic, was this shift or this dialogue around being data-driven. So I said, all right, let's write a book on this. And if we take a look at being data-driven, there are key pillars that exist in here. There's a holistic data strategy. We need a data strategy, but we don't want to take on too much. It's really interesting. I think a lot of times chief data officers or leaders in data and analytics, they try to do everything all at once. Okay, that's one way to do it. But at the same time, we don't want to try and do everything at once. We want to break it down into small, right-sized pieces, bite-sized chunks that allow us to get that moving. So you need a full data strategy that ties to an organizational strategy, but then we need to break it down. We need the right tools and technology. In the past, I fear that unfortunately, sometimes the tool and technology is what organizations thought was a strategy. We need data literacy. Absolutely. We'll talk about that in just a second. That's the whole title of the session, right? We need the culture and change management to be a part of this. If I were to say to you, how easy is it to change an organization's culture? You might laugh at me. Why? Because it is not easy, right? That's not what we want to do. We want to weave the DNA of data. We want the culture to evolve so that the tools and technology and the data are there empowering us to make better decisions. Finally, we want leadership, and we need leadership to buy in. But underpinning all of these pillars is the skills gap. It was interesting. Prior to the pandemic, I had worked remotely since maybe 2015, basically, sometime during that year. So I had been remote for a while. But when the pandemic was hitting, I was traveling maybe 1 to 4 times a month. It just kind of depended on the month. And so as shutdowns occurred, my joke was, I think my family's going to get sick of me, something like that. I also thought that my calendar would open up. Well, guess what happened? The opposite occurred. My calendar didn't open up. It got busier because I think people were not being data-driven in the manner that they thought they should be. And by not being data-driven, it's let's go call that nerd Jordan up and see what we can do. But underpinning all of it is the skills gap, right? Click, who I worked for, and I'm at their event today, I think it was last year, released results of a study that showed about 1 in 10 people are confident, fully confident in their data literacy skills. I think it was 11%. So we have this irony or this paradox happening where what we're trying to do is be data-driven, but at the same time, we don't have the skills to do it. So how do we close that gap? So let's talk a little bit about data literacy. Data literacy, by definition, is this ability to read, to work with, to analyze, and to communicate with data. Apologize, a quick sip here. So by definition, there are 4 characteristics that make up data literacy. Notice what term does not exist in here. And that term is data science, right? Think about that. Data science is such an interesting world. All the way back in October 2012, I think is when the quote came out from Harvard that went something like, if I mess up a word or two, the sexiest job of the 21st century is data science. And that's power, right? But here's the problem. What do you think organizations did after that? They went out to try and hire data scientists. Problem with that is it didn't mean that they were just going to work right. It didn't mean that the strategy was just going to happen. We need to understand how to use them. And when you saw my organization of 10,000 employees, maybe 1 to 200 of them are data and analytics professionals by title. That's 9,000, if I got my math right, 9,800 or 9,900 that need data literacy. Now, if you look at this list, it's pretty straightforward. The ability to read data is the ability to look at it and comprehend. The ability to work with it is going to vary depending on your role. If you're a data scientist, yeah, you're going to work with it differently than if you're a data analyst or just like a marketing manager. We need to be able to analyze the data, right? Analyzing data means we can dig into the 4 levels of analytics, and hopefully we can find the what and the why. And then finally, we need to be able to communicate effectively with the data. Again, let's say we found this magic treasure, everyone should participate in it, and we have no idea how to explain to others how to get there. That's communication, right? If you think about it, how many of us are super comfortable with all the terminology of data and analytics, right? If you were to go out and talk to people and say, what's natural language processing? What's machine learning? All these things. If you're a data and analytics professional, you probably have comfort around there. But if you're not, that's a problem. And so the reality is we have to work through holistically. I think I've get asked at least once, if not more in the past, does this data scientist have a role with data literacy? Absolutely. We all have a role. And the one thing I want to make very clear is every single person we come across is data literate to an extent. I don't want anybody thinking they're not. Like, for example, this is my smartphone, right? There it is. What do you think I'm using my smartphone to do sometimes when I travel? I'm looking at the data on the weather. And when I look at the data on the weather, I need to pack accordingly, right? I think sometimes also we sit here and say, you know what? I've experienced something 10 times, 8 times this occurs. And we go off, that's my experience. That's also data. It's information. And so we've just got to get good at helping people understand they're there. They haven't arrived. You're never going to personally arrive at being fully data literate because things change. But we do want people to be comfortable. A colleague of mine, his name is Brent Dykes. And he wrote, and I think I helped him on it. I was editing it or kind of gave my review of something we call the minimum viable proficiency. Think about your organization. What would be the minimum viable skill set people could have with data literacy? Now, when we look at this, the most important one is to read data. A lot of times I think people think it's to communicate, and communication is super key. But if we don't know how to read the data correctly, how are you going to work with it, analyze it, and communicate with it? So reading is the most important characteristic on here, but communicating is the secret sauce of these. All right, so let's go to our next piece here, and that is being data-driven. What in the world does this mean? Does everyone need to be a data scientist? I believe I've already said that. Does organization need to blow everything up they've been doing if we're not being successful? Possibly, but probably not. What does it mean to be data-driven? Let's talk about what a data-driven culture looks like. I'm sitting in an event for Click where a lot of people here are probably data and analytics professionals. I've got CIOs, I believe, chief data officers, chief data and analytics officers, you name it. I've got them here. And at lunch, I'm speaking to leadership. So it's small. I'm only talking for a few minutes and then it's open Q&A. But the reality around it is the number one roadblock to data and analytics success is the culture of the organization. Number one, these are my pillars of a data-driven culture. Number one, data fluency. Do we have this ability to speak the language of data? If most people are not data scientists, they don't need to know data science terminology. But what they do need to know how to do is communicate with data science terminology or a data scientist. And a data scientist needs to put things in terms that are not jargon. Like if I came on here and started talking about Markov chain analysis, I don't know how many of you know what Markov chain analysis is. But if I come in here and I start talking about predictive modeling or probability, well, there you go. There's Markov chain analysis. But all I did was change the terminology of it. Number two, I talked about this with the 4 levels of analytics. Iteration. Data and analytics will not get this right all the time. It won't. So we have to have the mindset that says we're going to iterate on this so that we can drive things forward. The DNA of data. I'm not here. We'll talk about this more. I'm not here to convert everybody into a data scientist. For a data-driven culture to succeed, we want to weave the DNA of data throughout it. We'll talk about it. Data community. We need to build communities within our organizations where people can free flow information, free flow questions, have conversations. Number 5, we need to build within our organizations a culture where we're learning fast. I don't like the phrase fail fast. So I apologize if any of you at your organization use that phrase. The reason I don't like it is we don't celebrate failure, if you think about it. Failure is okay. Data and nothing is going to get it perfect, I don't think. If we've got it perfect, there's probably something wrong in the model. So what we want to do is we need to iterate. We need to learn fast. And we need to celebrate those times where it doesn't go the way we want. There's a great quote by a hero of mine, Nelson Mandela, that says something to the effect, if I mess up a word or two, I never lose. I win or I learn. That's what I want your mindset to be in data and analytics. I never fail. I get it right or I learn. So the next time or the one after that, whatever time it is, we iterate and we get it right. The final one on here is skepticism. I want to create data skeptics around the world. I do. I don't want data cynics. Those are different. I don't trust the data. Oh, the data's not right, blah, blah, blah. Or that's data cynicism. I want data skepticism. How did we pull the data? Is the data accurate? What are we doing with the data? Can we visualize it a different way? What that means is that the data might not be incorrect. I just want you to ask more questions. That's it. That's how we get healthy data skepticism. Now, one of the big things we have to do in this case is also be very good at allowing people to question our data. That's tougher. We can teach everybody to ask questions. Let's make sure we are okay with our work being questioned. Now, let's talk about driving data literacy through the DNA of data. How do we evolve this, right? We don't want to make everyone think that they need to become a data scientist. We want them to weave DNA into their work, the data into their work, right? We want them to use all the tools at their disposal, including their gut feel, their intuition, their ideas. Combine it with the data to make a smarter, data-driven decision where it is combined with the human element. I don't want anybody to think we're getting rid of the human. In fact, I think the advent of AI to the level it is today probably made data literacy more important in the world, because we need to know how to interact with it. We might not be building the analyses or the visualizations as much anymore, but do we have the skills to interact with it effectively? That's a big deal. So we need data literacy, AI literacy. We need these things driving us. Now, these are my 3 C's of data literacy, and we're going to keep marching here, and then I'll turn it over to Jen for questions. The first one is curiosity. I have 5 children. How many freaking questions do you think I get on a daily basis? It's unreal sometimes. Like just this morning, I FaceTime them, and I don't know how many questions I got. One of them was, do you have a busy day? Well, yes, absolutely. I'm going to bed super early. But here's the thing that's interesting to me is when we become adults, guess what we start doing? We stop asking questions, and I don't know why. We have so many opportunities to ask questions, but a lot of times when we get the data, what we end up doing is we end up driving all these different thoughts. We might have thoughts, but we might keep our mouth shut, and we just take what it is and march forward. Instead, I want you to ask today, call to action. After today, maybe it's tomorrow for you, since it might be later in the day for you. What things am I doing with data that could be done differently? It's just a question, and then figure it out. Number 2, creativity, right? We all have creativity in us pretty much, right? And if you don't think you do, I bet you do somewhere. Most of us can be creative. What I want you to do is look at the data and analytics and figure out where you can be creative with it. Finally, critical thinking. We have got to think more critically. I'm in the United States. It goes without saying that critical thinking might not be our strong suit right now. We got to critically think more on data and information and not allow emotions. This is the one thing I would say to do when it comes to being truly data-driven, is empower yourself and your organization to leave emotions at the door. It's very hard, right? And you might not get perfect at it, but we have to critically think and say to ourselves, are my thoughts okay? Or are they wrong? Now, the question can come up with people, where in the world does the human lie in this? I hope you all understand that your gut feel, your experience, your intuition, and everyone you work with, I want them to all understand the human element is not going away. It should never go away. Can the data and technology do some things for us? Yeah. But overall, I need, for example, let's say something in the past took you 3 hours to build. Now the tool will do it to you in 15 minutes. You now have 2 hours and 45 minutes to make deep work, right? Digging in, critically thinking, analyzing, finding insight. You have freed up so much time to be empowered to do data literacy work, to find, guess what? The insight that the organization has. But I want you to use your human element. Maybe you are very good at the creativity side. And you're like, you know what? I bet I can visualize this better so that I can make it pop out more and people understand it. Great. Maybe you have 20 years experience in your field. And so you're combining that with the data. That's great. You need to understand. Sometimes the data needs to overtake our thoughts. And sometimes our thoughts absolutely need to overtake the data. Absolutely. Don't ever think differently. Now, here are my 5 steps to making or being data-driven. And I want you to picture this, and I'm going to close out here in just a few minutes, and we'll turn it back to Jan. I want you to think about, okay, in my current role, how data-driven am I? Second thing to think about, at my organization, how data-driven are we? Third, I want you to think, what goals and things do I want to accomplish personally and from a data perspective at this time? This 5-step approach right in front of you can help you do it. Number 1, what is it that you're trying to achieve? I think sometimes we unfortunately, number 3 on here, do I have the right tools? Some organizations and individuals have purchased tools and technology, and that was their first step. And then they force people to use it, and they think we're doing it. And the reality is that's not the case. A tool is a tool to help us achieve the outcome. And when I say outcome, think of it from an organizational perspective. What is our organization trying to achieve? By looking at whatever the organization is trying to achieve, that's our outcome. Last week, I was sitting in Scotland with Scottish Fire and Rescue. What outcomes are they looking to achieve? Got it. Number 2, what is the strategy that I'm going to take to get me there? What data do I need? Do I have good tools and technology, right? The strategy kind of can help permeate down the next 3 things, right? Do I have the right tools? That's number 3. But first, this strategy. Okay, I know what I want to achieve. How do I get there? And guess what? It is perfectly okay to say, you know what? I don't know how to get there. I got to figure this out. So part of the strategy at the beginning might be figuring out how to get there. And then the number 3 thing we want in here is when we know the outcome, we've built a strategy. Maybe that's what data do we need? What kind of analysis do we want to run? Is it exploratory? Remember, there is a place for exploratory analysis out there. Then we say, okay, outcome and strategy, we got it. Do I have the tools to help me get there? Tools are something to help the outcome and the strategy come to life. That is the tool and technology. Do I have the right tools to make it happen? Number 4, do I have the right skills? Train yourself. Not only that, if you're in an organization or leading an organization, if you don't have the right skills with the strategy, data literacy, and the tools, how successful do you think you're going to be? You might run into some major problems right off the bat. Number 5, the number 1 roadblock, number 1 for data and analytics success is the people of the organization. It's not clean data. It's not access to data. It's not tools and technology. You could have everything, steps 1 through 4, perfectly mapped out. And then people don't want to do it. The culture has just destroyed it. So we're not changing the culture. We're evolving it. Is the environment right to be there? It might be that the organization's not there, but do you have teams that are? Individuals that are? Make sure these are there. Like, for example, for me, think about, like, I like running in the mountains. I've run, I don't know how many, 11, 12, 13 ultra marathons, right? Finishing all but 2 of them. If I were to set out and say, I want to achieve, my outcome is getting fit enough to finish this race. I can then say, this is my strategy to get there. I can then arm myself with the tools and technology. Do I need new shoes? Do I need climbing poles? Do I need a new watch? I'm not sure my Disney Mickey golfing watch is going to be a good one to run on the trails with, right? Number 4, do I have the skills to get there? Am I stretching enough? Do I know how to stretch enough? Do I lift weights enough? All of this. And do I have the culture to make it happen? I have a superb spouse. My wife supports me in my craziness, and I have children who are amazing. Think about it for you within what goals and outcomes you are trying to do to be data-driven. And by the way, I can use data throughout that journey combined with my ideas. It was interesting. I've got Kogan on the phone. When I was writing my 3rd book, I used ultramarathons, one race in particular, I believe, in there. And I had my editor saying, oh, use business examples, not personal. And I'm a big believer. I'm like, no, personal examples resonate with people. Business examples are wonderful. Don't get me wrong. But I want to resonate with people so they can see this full picture. So there you have it. Be data-driven with these 5 steps. Now, how to connect with me. I struggle promoting myself and my books. So I'm sure Kogan is happy to see me do it here. I'm on LinkedIn. I posted today. I want to say yesterday. I don't know what day it is. So connect with me on LinkedIn. My first book, I want to say, came out in 2021. My second book came out last year. It was Be Data Literate, Be Data Driven. And my 3rd book launches, I believe, June 3rd. And it's called Be Data Analytical. It goes through the 4 levels of analytics. And through these 3 books, I don't put formulas. I'm not teaching you how to code. There are plenty of books out there that do that. My 3rd book hopefully resonates and helps you understand the 4 levels of analytics. And maybe, I don't know if this was my big intent with it, but hopefully it comes across that you know your place and where you can fit in, whether you do or not. So you all have a place at this table. I hope you've enjoyed this end of day keynote. I'm going to say a big thank you, and I'll turn it back to you, Jan, and we can leave it open for some questions. Let me know if you'd like me to stop sharing my screen.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Jordan. This is, I think, one of the best possible day ends that we could wish for. A lot of people liked it. I saw throughout your session a lot of interactions and a lot of questions coming in. So we still have 4 or 5 minutes to go through a couple of questions. So I'll just go in order of popularity of the questions, if you want, don't mind. First question is from Juan Carlos Herrera. And he says, hello, Jordan. According to your presentation, there are 4 levels of analytics. Where is the cognitive analytics?
It's a fair question, Juan, because there's another level that some people might say goes on there, and it's inferential analytics, right? I think it spans across probably all of them. Because if you think about cognitive analytics, the human element, it could be a part of descriptive, diagnostic, predictive, and prescriptive. So you're exactly right. You could see 5 levels. You might see some people say 6. I think where the majority of people, and I've never looked at this, probably land is on the 4 levels. But I never want people to think of that cognitive is not a part of this. In fact, when I was in Scotland last week, I believe someone was asking me about when the AI can do cognitive things. What do you think, right? I mean, that's an interesting question. So you're definitely, it's a great point, right? And I don't think that there is you'll find very quickly with me, and I've trained my wife to think this way, which I'm proud of her on. Things are not black and white. Things are not this or that. Things are, 90% of it can be covered in this, but are there gray areas that we have to explore? Think of data skepticism. So you bring up a great point, right? Cognitive analytics, inferential analytics, whatever you want to say, statistics, which can be a part of all of them. Where does it fit in? What I would say matters the most is figuring out where you fit in with it and figure out where your skill set is and applying things across the board on how you can make things analytically drive faster to help you push the insight. Hopefully that helps a little bit. You bring up a great point, right? That's how we look at it.
Good. I see a thumb going up, so I think that answers the question. Then on to our next one, which I also think is a very interesting one. Would you say people in less developed areas have equal opportunities to being data literate as people in more developed areas due to their online nature of the digital world, or is there still some imbalance?
Oh my goodness. I love the underdeveloped areas. Do you know why? Because they don't have a history of all the red tape and all the things that could possibly stand in the way of developing data literacy correctly. I've seen a couple predictions that, by the year 2030, the balance of economic power is going to be like Southern Asia and Eastern Africa or whatever. And I think part of the reason that's there is they don't have all the red tape. I'm at a federal summit here in the US. How long do you think it takes for things to drive forward from a federal government in the US? Whereas in maybe underdeveloped countries and all that, we can drive forward faster. It's really interesting. The number 1 organization that I work with on data literacy might shock you. It is the United States Army. I was at Scottish Fire and Rescue last week. That is a public sector thing. NHS was there, police, ambulance, tourism, different things. They're doing a pretty good job. Their vision is there. Leadership is there. I actually think possibly private industry, maybe from a little bit of arrogance, gets in their own way sometimes with this stuff. Oh, we bought the tool. We're this company. We're that company. I love the idea. When I built data literacy, I made it free. Click has changed that. Part of it is free, part of it is not. But my mind, one time I was talking to the country of Uganda. Now imagine if you could put computers with free data literacy learning and things like that, which you could probably get a lot of it on YouTube at this point. And you empower individuals without all the historical bias and experience and red tape and all these things to develop skills that will compete better in the future. I think it is power. And if any of you want help in doing this and making it happen, let me know. Because I wish there was less red tape where I am so that things can be adopted a little bit quicker. And if you can get my country to think more critically, we're going to dinner. Let's do it.
That's very good. I think we're going to take you on to that advice. Then let me do one last question. I know people keep asking questions, but I'll pick one more just to finish the session today. And I'll pick this question from Alejandro, which I think is also a very good one. How can we empower the 4 characteristics within an organization, especially communicate?
It's one of those where you definitely truly need a data literacy program, right? If you don't have a data literacy program, you're going to struggle to make it happen. So you need to get a data literacy program in place. And what that means is it's not one size fits all. It's not driving things and this and that. It means you're putting a true data literacy program in place and allowing that to succeed. And so that's how you do it. As part of your data strategy should be doing data literacy. And what skills do we have? You start with assessments. You start with this. You start with that. But you drive yourself forward with a truly powerful data literacy initiative. It should be a part of it, because if it's not a part of it, you might really, really struggle.
Good. On that note, Jordan.
If I didn't get to your question, connect with me on LinkedIn and ask me the question, and I'll try and get you an answer. I'm an open book. That's how I got to Scotland. Ask me the questions and we'll help you get those answers.
You're building a very nice bridge for me, because speaking about books, we are very closely coming to an end. I think a lot of people are going to be very interested. Note that publisher Kogan Page has made 3 books available, the Be Data Driven book from Jordan, which you have a chance to win during this conference. These are still physical hard copy books. I know we're in a world of ebooks nowadays, but these will be sent as a hard copy towards your home address. And as I introduced during the keynote this morning, we have 5 questions throughout the 2 days, and the people who have all of them correct, or most of them correct, will be entered into the lottery to win these books. So let me start the quick poll for the last part for today that you need to do. And the question is, how many zettabytes of data are estimated to be in the digital universe by 2025? Let me open up the poll for you right now.
I like the question.
And then you can take a vote. What's your best estimate? Good. Take a few more minutes to answer this. And we're going to give you a few more seconds, and then we're closing the poll. Good, and the poll is now closed. I will share all the results tomorrow when we do the closing session, and there you will get all the answers to all of the questions. Good. On that note, Jordan, I would like to thank you so much for being part of Big Data Days 2023. I know you have a tremendously busy schedule, and I'm so grateful that you found and are willing to spend the time with us to share your knowledge, your expertise, and your experience. It's an absolute pleasure to listen to you. Thank you. So on behalf of everyone here, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good. And that, my friends, brings us slowly but surely towards the end of our first day of Big Data Days 2023. It's been a long day with almost 18 different sessions over the course of the first day. But the good news is we still have a similar program for you tomorrow. So tomorrow we have another 18 sessions lined up for you with all kinds of interesting topics around machine learning, data science. We're going to see some case studies from AWS tomorrow. So all in all, another very interesting day that we have for you. For now, I would like to say first and foremost, thank you. Thank you for taking the time with us today. Thanks for listening in. Thanks for interacting with all of our students, and also a special thanks to all of our sponsors that made this event possible. For now, I'm going to say goodbye, but I look forward to seeing all of you in a few hours when we start the second day of Big Data Days 2023. See you tomorrow.